Wow. Finally, I think we've gotten some news when it comes to Arsenal that is actually good news. Um, for the past few weeks, it's been kind of slow. It's been kind of boring. It's been kind of tedious. We've seen other clubs make big progress on big signings. It looked like Elliot Anderson to City. You saw today before our Bomba. You saw Santos to United. Before that, you saw Ederson to United. I don't know what's happening with that anymore. Then you saw Spurs sign Tonali and Mateus Fernandez. And so there was so much progress going on with all of our competitors, right? Chelsea, I think, made a few signings. I can't remember who exactly off the top of my head. Palestra, I think, is one of them. But this whole time, after Josh Kroenke talked about champions, 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 we're going to move like champions. This is just the start. We were expecting, I guess, most of the fan base was expecting a fast start to that window, and it's been anything but fast. It's been horribly slow. But we finally got, first of all, our first signing, which I guess is irrelevant, not the most relevant. So maybe we talk about that after. But secondly, we finally got our first, I think, big bomba of the summer. We've had links. I think I've talked about Bruno G before, but now this is much more concrete. You're looking at 60 million-pound bid expecting to be made from Arsenal to Newcastle, and on top of that, Bruno Guimaraes has asked to leave Newcastle. And honestly, we've seen this before, right? Before we get into Arsenal side of things, we've seen this before from Newcastle side of things, right? We've seen this before. A player asked to leave. They say their stance is not for sale. They did this with Isak. They did this multiple times, and then they end up folding and selling. You can only do that nowadays. That's just how it goes. And last season that was with Champions League. So now you can imagine without Champions League how it might be. Then you add on the fact that Tonali is leaving, or Tonali has left. Gordon has left. So it kind of feels like the project is dying out. The project might die. And on top of that, they're going and signing two new midfielders. To both young, one from Sean Store, I think from Ajax, I can't remember exactly the club, but from the Eredivisie for sure. I know he's Dutch. And then Mozambi, the Switzerland player that has kind of blown up this World Cup in terms of from a Swiss perspective. And all that looks like, okay, they're kind of bracing for a rebuild. And also signing two new midfielders while let going of one doesn't really make sense given they're only going to play the league. Now it makes a lot more sense when you look at, Bruno Guimaraes might also be leaving, and he's actually formalized his request to leave Newcastle to join Arsenal, and Arsenal specifically in that request. I think that's massive news for us because I think that pushes the value of the transfer down by a lot. I think it's also massive for us that a lot of our competitors that could compete have made their midfield signings already, or at least their signature one. You look at Tonali and Fernandez for Spurs, and they're clearly overpaying this summer, so you could see them overpaying for a guy like Bruno if he was interested. City already made an Elliot Anderson move, and I think they're looking at Buwadi as well. United, they signed Santos. They might want to sign one or two more, but they have a lot to fix in their team, so who knows what they're going to do. And Liverpool don't really look like they're in for a 6/8 midfielder. They look like they're really going for that Barcola, Diamante. Well, Diamante no longer, but Barcola, they look like they're going for heavy. So, with all that all that context into play, or putting all that context into account, or taking all that context into account, sorry, we can finally look at the market and say, you know what? This is like an ideal time for this to happen. First of all, it's July 8th. It's early enough, and this will probably come out July 9th, but it doesn't matter. It's early enough to the point where, it's early enough to say that, he'll come in for preseason and he'll have time to adapt to the team. He won't have an Isak unless Newcastle do the same thing that they did last summer, which I'm sure they would want to learn from. Beyond that, I think it also comes out ideal because, like I just said, a lot of the competitors have signed their midfield signing. And we need to start getting a move on with our targets. And so moving this to an Arsenal perspective specifically, I think, wow, he's an amazing player, and I think he helps us in every way possible. He's good in the defensive third. He has tenacity to him in the duels. He's good in the duels. He's solid at covering ground. Obviously, no one's Declan Rice, but he's a good ground eater. I think Tonali's a better ground eater, but Bruno Guimaraes can cover ground, and he has an impact in the final third that I don't think Tonali has, Mateus Fernandes has, Buadi has, or any of the other midfield movements have. Even Elliot Anderson. I don't think any of these guys have the impact in the final third that Bruno Guimaraes has right now. We've seen it for Brazil. We've seen it for Newcastle against us as well. Not just against lower league opposition. He does in high quality games as well. I mean, even, you look at Newcastle's form last season. When Bruno Guimaraes is not there versus when he is there, the level is different. They are so much better with him there versus when he is not there. And I think that all just represents how good of a player he is. It shows his quality. So I think all that to say, in terms of ideal midfield targets, I always said Buadi was up there. And that was not considering, if I'm being honest, I wasn't even considering the idea of Bruno Guimaraes being on the table. But now that that deal is on the table, I think, wow, how can I not be interested? How is this not our main midfield priority? And then you add on to the fact of the quality, the fee. The fee we're looking at, they're saying we're going to submit a bid of 60 million. You expect that to be a little bit of a low ball. Generally, that's how initial bids go, and it is technically will be our second bid, but our first bid directly to the club, I assume, based on what's been said. And so you assume that maybe the deal won't get done for 60, but you don't think it will get done for 100 if opening bids are at 55 and 60 million. And, some sources, I can't remember who exactly, but there's varying sources saying, they're expecting the deal to go from, 65 to 75 million pounds. And if you look at the rest of the midfield, the midfield market, just the market in general, you're looking at, players like Lacroix, Van Hecke going for 50 million. You're looking at players like Mateus Fernandes, Tonali going for 85, 100, Elliot Anderson, 116 million. Bruno Guimaraes is much, in my opinion, much better. Even Andros Santos, 50 million from Chelsea to from Chelsea to United. Bruno Guimaraes, is much better than I think every single one of those players I listed. So for him to be going at a fee that's slightly over, or what I expect to be, slightly over Andre Santos's fee, cheaper than Mateus Fernandez's fee, and cheaper than Tonali's fee by what probably will be close to 30 million. It is insane. I think it's such a good deal, and it makes so much sense with what we need now. When you look at our midfield profiles, I think given the amount of football some of our players are playing, Rice is someone that can be rotated if you have a Bruno Guimaraes. Zubimendi is someone that doesn't need to play every game with Bruno Guimaraes. And Lewis Skelly doesn't have to play every game with Bruno Guimaraes. So I feel like just in every profile, every stature, every status, in every perspective when it comes to this signing, it makes sense. He's a win-now option, 28 years old, entering his prime, probably already in his prime slightly. He can give us a good few years, 3 at least. I would say even more than that because he doesn't really rely on that physical engine as much. He has technical quality as well. So you think at least 3 years he could give us. And probably 3 years in his prime, maybe 4 or 5 years at a good level. Then you also look at, okay, he's 28, which means that, by the time his time is over, Lewis Skelly will be more established. You look at, some of our top profiles that we want to sign, Acorn, Buadi. These guys are 16 to 18 years old. By the time Bruno Guimaraes is done or he's peaking out, those guys will be ready to take it over if we want to, go and invest in another profile. If you want to look at our academy, I think we have a guy named Ibrahim, or I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but I think it's something Ibrahim. I remember seeing him in one of our games. I can't remember, maybe it was a Champions League game or a Carabao Cup game, but regardless, he's a highly talented and highly rated young midfielder. And so if it's, if we feel like we have a midfield solution that I'm in the academy that I'm not too sure about yet, like him, Bruno Guimaraes is the perfect option because it gives them time to bet in. So not only is this an elite player, probably the best on the market in terms of experience, in terms of quality, in terms of mentality, but on top of that, you have someone that ages correctly in terms of profile. He's not too young to the point where you're worried about an inexperienced player that might have to adapt. This is someone that is prem proven, but he's also at an age where he's ready to give us our prime years. And he's not 20, he's not 30 where, he's at the latter stage and you're worried about how many years he can give left. He's 28. So he has at least 3 or 4 years still left in him. And on top of that, you look at how that fits in our squad profile. He's a profile that can rotate with basically any of our other midfielders and keep the squad balance. This guy, he has a high IQ, able to cover ground, but also able to drop deep. He's a very versatile 6/8 profile, probably an elite 6/8 hybrid model. In terms of a player profile, this is an elite profile. So I think when you add all that together, and then on top of that, the win now mentality that we want to have, we want to make this into a dynasty, make this into a Champions League winning team, for example. This is the perfect signing to make. So honestly, I feel like I've talked about Bruno Guimaraes before, but now there's more news, more content about it. So I think that, look, this is an elite signing and I cannot be more behind it. And especially at the price, how much better could you get? And I guess to wrap up, before, I guess we can dedicate a minute to, I think, our third choice goalkeeper. But if Kepa leaves, I think he'll be promoted to our second choice goalkeeper, Meslier, who was, when he was young at Leeds, he was highly touted as someone that, could, because of his ball playing ability and that type of stuff, he looked like a potential good goalkeeper, but he stagnated. He's actually declined. He's fallen off. He's made some dreadful mistakes for Leeds. And they've had to replace him when coming back up to the Prem because he's just not fit at that level anymore. And so obviously that's not a good look, but a good look in terms of that's a player where we're signing someone on a free contract that Leeds wanted to let go of and doesn't start for Leeds. And this could potentially be our backup goalie. Of course, that's not a good look, but I mean, when you look at the whole situation, why that is, it's so Setford can go out on loan and get some experience. As of right now, it looks like he will be the third choice goalie. It's also to save the budget for other profiles that we want to sign, i.e. Barcola, i.e. Rogers, i.e. Bruno Guimaraes, i.e. a center back / right back mold. We've heard Konza, we've heard Lacroix. I think all those things in tandem, all those things in combination lead to it making sense. Of course, it is frustrating because if you watch some of this guy's clips, he looks horrible. But hey, man, I can't be too judgmental. I can't be too picky when it comes to this. I think it's fair enough. It's a backup goalie. It's a third choice goalie, maybe a backup goalie. I don't really care that much. I think at some point you should buy a backup goalie that's actually quality in case Real gets injured, but also if you want to keep playing your backup goalie in these cup games. But I guess they see potential in Setford and, I guess they want to develop him into one of those roles, either second or third. I assume a second choice, maybe even a starting goalkeeper long term. So, hey, man, I think in terms of the transfer news, I think that's a lot of what I wanted to talk about. Obviously, there's the Konza news, but that's kind of fallen up and down, especially since we want to sign Rogers. I couldn't see us signing Rogers and Konza, so I kind of want to lay off that for a little bit, see how much stronger that gets. But Bruno Guimaraes, bring him. He is amazing.